What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jericholic8704, and I'm here to introduce you to something a little new to this channel. I figured, now that it's summer vacation, I've passed finals week, and all that is behind me, why not start a little bit of a series on this channel? Now, here's what I'm thinking. WWE Network finally got their heads out of their asses, and they put up some old Raws from 2002, 2003, and stuff like that. It won't be long before they put 04, 05 up. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to go a little Brian and Vinny on you and do a retro Raw review, except not from the 90s, but from the 2000s. So I figured, why not do it when I was like first watching, as a kid. So I decided to start this weekly series of reviewing a Raw starting with the year 2003 that matches with the date. So this Raw is from May 12th, 2003. That's the first Raw that we're doing, the inaugural Jericholic8704 reviews. Retro Raw, I don't know what I'm going to call the series. I'll think of something creative. Don't even worry about it. Anyway, I'm going to try and make this a weekly thing. Again, no promises. You know how I am. I might miss something. So, no promises. But what I want to try and do is I want to get every week, get a Raw from 2003 and onward out there. So hopefully, I'm kind of banking on by the end of 2016, WWE would have uploaded 2004 Raws. But they've started to upload more and more Raws from 04, so this should be able to keep going, and hopefully, this can go on forever and ever and ever, and I wouldn't mind, if I get extra time, adding, like, maybe Raw and maybe a retro SmackDown. I'd love to go back and watch all those SmackDown 6 SmackDowns from 02. So, that'd be really, really fun, but as of right now, we're just doing Raw, and again, if I stop doing Raw, I can switch to SmackDown and go back and forth. But yeah, so this is going to be our start. Raw, May 12th, 2003, emanating from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So going in with our opening segment, Christian's in a cage. It opens up, no pyro, no, previously on WWE type of promo. Christian's just in the steel cage. He's running around. He's complaining about Austin. This was when Jericho and Christian were kind of, going on strike against Steve Austin, saying he was a bad GM. And he was like, Christian was ready to face Goldberg in a steel cage match, and then eventually Austin came out. Fans went nuts. He went on, to bash Christian a little bit, make fun of him and everything. And there was a funny moment here where Christian said he thought he was up first because Austin was like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then Christian was like, "But I thought I was on first. You pointed your finger at me and you said you're on first." And then Austin was like, "No, I didn't put my index finger up. I put this finger up." And he flipped him off in front of everyone. Everyone cheered. So the cage gets raised, and then Rob Van Dam comes out, of all people. One half of the tag champs, I forgot, RVD and Kane were the tag team champions at this point. They all go back and forth. They all three do a version of Stone Cold's "If You Want to See Me," blah, 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 give me a hell yeah. Stone Cold said hell yeah. RVD said just Rob Van Dam. And I think Christian was like, "Christian rocks." And I swear, like, he did this thing with his arms. It looked like he was doing a Nazi salute. That's honestly what it looked like. I'm sorry if that offended anyone, but that's really honestly what it looked like. I'm not endorsing anything there, but it's just what it looked like to me. So then eventually Kane comes out, and this is where they first mentioned, because Judgment Day 2003 this is the go-home show for Judgment Day 03. And I believe that was the last pay-per-view before they went brand exclusive. So that's, significant. But RVD and Kane start arguing over the IC title battle royal, and I totally forgot about this. This was a completely idiotic move by WWE. They retired the IC title. I believe it ended at No Mercy 02 in that Katie Vick storyline. What a way for the IC title to go out to be part of the Katie Vick storyline. Can't imagine anything better. But, I completely forgot about all this, and this was totally stupid. Why would they do something like that? Like this was awful. This was awful. The IC title never should have gone away, and it was completely stupid. And they brought it back. What was it? Just 8 months later. This is totally, totally stupid. And I totally forgot about this. But yeah, I remember the battle royal. It wasn't even a lot of people. It was maybe 10 guys. It wasn't even that big of a battle royal, which I guess is okay. But whatever. Steve Austin was like, "All right, so you guys are all arguing and bickering," and Christian eventually just leaves. As soon as Kane comes out, Christian just dips. I don't know what's going on there. Steve Austin wants to drink. He gets some beers. Bischoff comes out, and Bischoff makes a tag team title match against a team that Rob Van Dam and Kane have, quote, never faced before. And out comes the Legion of Doom. I know, right? Kind of random. But yeah, Hawk and Animal come out, and what's weird is I think Hawk, was it Hawk? No, yeah, Hawk died. Because God, he died like a couple months after this, right? He died in like October or November of '03, somewhere around there. But yeah, I think this is probably his last appearance. I think, I might be wrong about that, but I think it was his last appearance on WWE TV before he died. So anyway, we have a tag team title match, Rodney, Dam Kane versus LOD. This wasn't your standard tag team match. Rodney, Dam Kane pretty much had the advantage for most of the match. They kind of hit him with all their spots. The LOD had a little bit of a comeback. They went for the devastation device. They missed. It looked like a botch at first. It looked like who goes up to the top rope? Damn it. I think it was it was Hawk that went up to the top rope, I think. It looked like Hawk had missed RVD, but RVD, on the replay, when they showed it from a different angle, it was clear that he ducked. At first, I thought it was a botch and JR was covering for them, but, they finished with a choke slam into a 5-star frolic splash. I don't know, it was a nothing match, kind of dumb. LOD, you think they'd hype him up a little bit more, but they kind of have a little surprise comeback. I don't know, maybe this was leaked back in 2003 and I didn't know about it, but, it was an average match. I mean, I can't even say average. It was nothing. It wasn't even your standard formulaic tag team match. Kane and RVD basically just dominated them. And then we had a backstage segment with Trish, Victoria, and Steven Richards. There was going to be a hardcore match between Trish and Victoria tonight. Trish was getting her makeup done, and then Victoria and Steven Richards kind of came up and messed with her. They got in both of her ears like they were like two angels on the side of her shoulders. They basically were just like, I'm going to rearrange your looks and stuff like that. Victoria and Steven Richards, I kind of forgot about them too as a little dynamic duo. I can't remember them doing anything too spectacular. I think it was just something for both of them to do. Like, oh, you guys are a couple now. I do remember Steven Richards did that Mystery Woman thing, but I didn't think that was till next year. I think it was in like 2004, because I remember he had that impromptu match with Tomko. I don't know why I remember stuff like that, but I just remember they were supposed to be kind of like a psychiatric, eccentric couple. They weren't all the way there in their heads. But yeah, this was stupid. Anyway, then we had, this was bullshit. This was a backstage segment between Chris Jericho and Triple H. The main event advertised for this show was Chris Jericho and Kevin Nash. And, HHH comes in and he's like, Philadelphia, this is a pretty famous town. And of course, everyone like ACW and all that, and chants start for that. Jericho's like, what's so special about it? Philly sports teams suck. He bashes the Flyers and shit like that. So typical heel conversation promo. But then, oh my God, we just go on and on about quad tears. I swear this had to have been written by internet fans. Triple H is like, no, this building's so famous because a year ago Kevin Nash tore his quad, and then Jericho's like, yeah, well, I tore your quad, and then Triple H is like, yeah, but my quad tear skyrocketed your career. So basically, Triple H said, I got injured, and he took credit for Jericho's title win. Basically, he was like, your career would have been nothing. You would have been stuck in the middle of the card if it wasn't for me getting injured. Basically saying, I am such a main event level player that the only way for you to be successful is for me to leave. So Triple H, I'm not going to say he buried Jericho there, but made him look like a complete loser. Like if anyone is not brain dead from the amount of quad tear references, really, Triple H just basically made Jericho look like a total nerd. And then HHH is like, all right, so Jericho, if you tear Kevin Nash's quad, think of how great your career is going to be. Because as we all know, Jericho was doing absolutely nothing. He had just gotten off the feud with HBK, but other than that, he was kind of in the middle of the road, not really doing anything during this little time frame between WrestleMania and Bad Blood. But yeah, so quad tear references out the ass. I swear they mentioned their quad once a sentence. It was absolutely stupid. So we have another backstage segment. I swear, and there was only in the first hour, I think there were 2 matches, and both combined lasted maybe 4 minutes. This Raw was not good. So we have a backstage segment with Goldberg. He arrives in a limo, and I do remember this. He's on his cell phone. He opens the door, and then a white rental car just slams into the door, and then you hear the cameraman go, Jesus Christ! And then Goldberg comes out and he screams and he's like, hey, what the fuck? Stuff like that. And then I think they go to a commercial there, and then, Steve Austin's backstage. We have another backstage segment, another goddamn backstage segment. Steve Austin runs into Teddy Long. Teddy Long calls him Playa. Stone Cold says, don't call me Playa. And he's like, okay, my bad. Then Teddy Long puts over Rodney Mack. I know majority of you will probably not even remember Rodney Mack. But yeah, Teddy Long was his manager, and he said, this man of color, this man of soul, is going to take on two white boys to win the IC title. He wanted him to be in the IC title battle royal. And the thing about Rodney Mack is I think he just suffered from what most wrestlers suffered in the mid-2000s that were brought in to made to look like $1 million. It's just like there was one thing missing from him, whether it be look, personality, wrestling ability. Like take Chris Masters, for example. Like, I know he was, like, years later, he had an amazing look. The dude was ripped. And I mean, he's a good looking guy and everything. And like wrestling wise, I mean, he wasn't horrendous. I mean, he was green when he first started, like anyone else would be. But he just had zero personality. Like, just like the most boring voice. Just he could not form a sentence in a convincing manner. Just a complete, just nothing. It's just personality wise, he just wasn't there. So I think with Rodney Mack, he did have that intimidating look. He did have Theodore Long to help him. Anyway, Stone Cold gave zero fucks about what Teddy Long was saying. He literally did not care. And then Austin was like, oh, yeah, you're right. So there is a person that does belong in the IC title battle royal, and his name is Booker T. Booker T was not on the show at all, but he was mentioned, and Stone Cold put him in the battle royal. And then we had the 5-minute double white boy challenge. Mike and Ken Phoenix versus Rodney Mack in a 2-on-1 elimination handicap match that lasted 5 minutes. It had a 5-minute time limit, I should say. One thing I did put in my notes, Ken Phoenix, was that Kenny Dykstra? For those of you who don't remember Kenny Dykstra, he was in the Spirit Squad, and then he had his little brief solo run in like early 2007. He actually beat Ric Flair like 3 times. It looked like him. I wasn't sure if it was him. I didn't want to say anything, but someone probably knows. They'll probably tell me. Teddy Long on commentary, he basically just bashed the man, quote unquote. He just said, we're better than the men. Rodney Mack just did generic moves. Both of these guys look like complete losers. I mean, they're enhancement talent. They're supposed to look like losers. He submits both of them in 90 seconds. This was a dud. And then Jim Ross had my favorite quote of the night. I didn't know I was a Playa. That is what JR said. Anyway, so we had another backstage segment. Coach comes up to Bischoff, asks about Goldberg. Bischoff is like, fuck you, I'm not talking to you. And then he's like, I have no comment. Do you understand what no comment means? So Bischoff runs away. And then we had Freddie Blassie show up. This was around the time that Freddie Blassie's book came out. It's like, listen up, you pencil neck geeks. Bischoff's like, oh, classy Freddie Blassie. Blassie's in his wheelchair. He doesn't give a fuck. So Bischoff is like, I'm not going to promote your book, yada, yada, yada. And then Rico shows up, and he's like, hey, 3-minute warning. We want something to do. And then Bischoff's like, he looks at Freddie Blassie, and he's like, oh, I got something for you to do. And then we have another backstage segment. Jesus Christ. Goldberg's pissed, and he's kicking his shit backstage. Austin shows up, and he's like, hey, what's going on with that car? Who was the driver? And Goldberg's like, I don't know who the driver was, but I'm going to take it out on Christian because that match is coming up soon. Then we had a segment. Freddie Blassie and Bischoff show up on stage. Bischoff's like, hey, it's an honor. And then, Freddie Blassie starts talking, and he's like, whoa, you could croak in any second. Let's hope you still have at least 3 minutes to live. And then 3-minute warning shows up. They come through the crowd, Roman Reigns style. What was great about this was they don't go after Freddie Blassie. Rather, 3-minute warning comes through the crowd and gets in the ring. And Bischoff slowly wheels Freddie Blassie towards the he slowly wheels him in his wheelchair towards the ring to get decimated by 3-minute warning. And what's great is Freddie Blassie was 100 years old at this point. He just did not, his facial expression did not change. This was really, when I say it was funny, I mean this was funny in a completely stupid way. This was totally fucked up and totally dumb. Anyway, Austin comes out. He pushes Freddie out of the way. He unsuspends the Dudley Boys, who apparently had been suspended. I'm hopping into the year halfway through, so I don't remember shit like that. So the Dudleys come in. They beat up 3-minute warning. And then Blassie tells Devon to get the tables. Devon gets a table, and they 3D Rico through the table. 38 minutes into this show, excluding commercial breaks, and we only had one match. But fortunately, we had another match. A steel cage match, Christian versus Goldberg. Before the match even started, Christian was seen with a chair that was kind of beat up. He was walking to the ring with this chair, and he said that he came out, he cut a promo. Christian said, oh, I got this chair. It's the people's chair because this is the chair that The Rock used against Goldberg. So that's why it was all dented up. And then Christian's like, yeah, I'm the new people's champion, yada, yada. So Goldberg comes down. Goldberg's all pissed because someone tried to hit him in the car. Hit him with the car, I should say. So Christian tries to escape. As soon as Goldberg enters the ring, Christian tries to climb out the walls. Goldberg gets him. I figured this would be, okay, Goldberg is all, pissed and everything. He's just going to kill Christian. That's not what happened. Goldberg, got the advantage throughout. He went for a spear. Christian was able to counter, hit him with a chair and shit like that. So Goldberg took a bunch of chair shots. Christian hit Goldberg right in the fucking head. That's what I have in my notes. Right in the fucking head. Literally, this was right in the head, unprotected. And, Christian wasn't the hardest chair shot in the world, but it was loud, and Christian didn't hold back. He swung the chair. And this wasn't even right in the face. This was right on the top of the skull. I don't know what would be worse, getting hit in the face. Majority of chair shots to the head were usually around a nose, forehead kind of region. This was literally the top of the head because Goldberg was hunched over, how someone would be in position for a curb stomp. He was hunched over like that, and Christian just whacked him right on the top of the head. And I have to figure that's worse because again, it was unprotected. And I'm not saying an unprotected chair shot to the face is better than the unprotected chair shot to the head. They're both pretty horrible. But seriously, Goldberg took a chair shot right to the head, and that was mistake number one with this match. And my second thing was Christian went for a spear after, hitting Goldberg with a bunch of chair shots. And Goldberg moved out of the way and shoved Christian right into the steel cage. So Christian got all cut up and he was bleeding. So we had a bleed, someone bladed, and we had a chair shot right to the head. Was this really necessary for a Raw? This was this feud. This is basically Goldberg's first feud post Rock. Post with a non part timer. Someone who's working full time in the company and would be working full time. For the coming years. Was this really necessary? I don't think it was. Christian and Goldberg was not this blood feud, no pun intended, that needed to be solved in the cage match. They're basically having a cage match for the sake of having a cage match. So did Christian really need to bleed? I know blading isn't as bad as it seems. Everything just kind of cleans up on its own. It's kind of natural and everything. But, I bet it's still a pain in the ass to cut your head open so blood spews out. And Christian got a pretty good cut. There was blood all over his face. And again, Goldberg took this chair shot right to the top of his head. Was it really necessary? I don't think so. This match wasn't even all that good. I gave it a star and a half. It was dumb. All right. And then after that, Goldberg hits him with a spear. He hits him with the cage, bleeds, spear, jackhammer for the pin, stuff like that. Star and a half. Goldberg wins. Who cares? It wasn't all that great. And aside from the chair shot to the head, there was nothing appealing about this match. And that chair shot to the head wasn't even appealing in a good way. I was like, what the fuck are they thinking? Anyway, backstage, we have Stone Cold and Ric Flair. Flair's like, HHH runs Raw, you don't run Raw, Triple H is my man, yada yada. He's basically just putting over Triple H like a madman. Hurricane shows up out of nowhere, and then he's like, HHH is going to beat Triple H, and he'll become Triple Biatch. And then Austin's like, both of you shut up, and he sets up Hurricane and Ric Flair, and he's like, it's right now. So they start wrestling. Hurricane's in his wrestling gear, Flair's in a white t-shirt and slacks, and they start fighting backstage. It spills out into the ring. Hurricane tries a sunset flip. He pantses Flair. Flair's bare ass is on TV. I'm sure that's nothing new for Flair. So Flair's pants fall off more. The match continues. I don't know if you guys have seen Tommy Boy, but that's what it reminded me of. In the movie Tommy Boy, David Spade's car gradually gets more and more destroyed as the movie progresses. And in this one, Flair's pants just increasingly fall off. Flair was the star of the show, in my opinion. So Hurricane hits him with a choke slam. I always loved how Hurricane did the choke slam. I always loved that because he's 5'8", 200 pounds, and he's doing a choke slam, which is a move reserved for 7-footers. Awesome. So Flair, of course, sells that $1 million, and then the best part of Raw, the best part of this whole Raw, was Hurricane hitting a Shining Wizard on Flair, and then Flair standing up and taking a Flair flop, which was awesome. That should have been the finish, But Flair kicked out. He hit a chop block on Hurricane in the figure four to win. Flair basically wins in his underwear. Hurricane eventually taps out. This is by far my favorite moment of the show. This was the best part of the show. I'm actually going to give this match 2.25 just because I was that entertained by it. And it probably wasn't even all that good. It was probably a dud. But compared to everything else on this show, this was by far my favorite part. And this was by far the most entertaining. So HHH and Flair, they do a little celebration. And then Triple H hits a pedigree on Hurricane. And JR is like, oh, stop the damn match. You know, stuff like that. And he's helpless. So Triple H destroys Hurricane. They make do. And they head out. All in embrace because Flair won. Anyway, then we had a 6-man tag match, Scott Steiner, Test, and I said Goldberg. Scott Steiner, Test, and Goldust, I should say. Let me make a little edit to that. Goldust versus La Resistance and Christopher Nowinski. La Resistance had just debuted. They had made a promo about the war in Iraq because, you know, when I turn on my television in 2003, that's what I want to hear about. The war in Iraq. Awesome. Then they make fun of the U.S., and then everyone's chanting USA. It was a completely by-the-books 6-man tag match. Nothing fun. There was a moment I laughed. King said, I can't remember the context of the joke, but King said Scott Steiner flunked recess in grade school. That probably makes me laugh just because I've heard Scott Steiner speak in incoherent promos. So, you know, that's kind of funny. I don't know why I thought that was hilarious, but anyway. Probably made a reference because Christopher Nowinski was in the match, and as we know, he was the Harvard grad and all that. Scott Steiner won with what I believe was a Scorpion Death Drop. It definitely was. I can't remember if Scott Steiner did a Scorpion Death Drop all the time, but he basically did that. You know, it was the reverse DDT. So Steiner wins with that, and it was like a star. And then, of course, Stacy Keibler is all flirting with Scott Steiner. And oh my God, that whole dynamic, even as like a 6-year-old, I was like, why is she in love with him? Like, even I could tell, like, someone like as beautiful as Stacy Keibler is in love with Scott Steiner. That's just hilarious to me. So Tess is all pissed and everything. And then we have a backstage interview. Terry's interviewing Jericho, asks him about Goldberg, and Jericho kind of dances around the question. We all know Jericho was the one that ended up, you know, plotting to have Goldberg run over by a car. But, you know, he kind of just dances around the question. He says he'll take out Goldberg and he'll take out Nash. And then we had a hardcore match, Trish Stratus and Victoria. You know, they had a hardcore match in 2002 at Survivor Series, and that match was awesome. This match, not so much. It was fine. You know, nothing wrong with it. Average match. It didn't go on that long. Tommy Dreamer showed up to be in Trish's corner to kind of even out the odds with Steven Richards in Victoria's corner. There were actually some cool spots in this match, not going to lie. There was a time where I believe Victoria tried to hit Trish, and then Trish did her little matrix spot where she like countered into the back bend. I always mark out for that spot. And then there was another really, really cool spot where Trish was going for a victory roll, and Victoria just shoved her off her shoulders, and she just smacked right onto the trash can lid. It was pretty awesome. Victoria hit her with some leather straps. Steven Richards tried to interfere and all that. Tommy Dreamer said no way, hit him with the kendo stick. Trish went for a chick kick, hit it. Hit him, Victoria with a couple kendo sticks, shots, and then eventually hit her with the Stratisfaction for the win. 2 stars was fine. Nothing great. 2.25, I'll give it. I'll give it the quarter for the extra cool spots, but whatever. Best match on the show by far. And then we have our main event, Chris Jericho versus Kevin Nash. No real, you know, no real like heat segment. It was all kind of back and forth here. One of the messed up spots of the match was Jericho. He went for a lion salt, and Nash was horrendously out of position. Jericho went for a bulldog, which, you know, his traditional spot is the bulldog into the lion salt. And Nash was really close to one end of the ring. And you could tell Jericho was like kind of contemplating for a second. You could see him like kind of looking at both sides because he knew if he went for the side Nash was closest to, he would overshoot his target and look like an idiot. So Jericho decided, like, Nash was like probably like 4/5 of the way over to the ring. So Jericho, you know, he runs all the way across the ring. He puts all of his might into this springboard, and he goes for the lion salt. He doesn't really hit him with his stomach. He kind of hits him with his legs, which probably isn't ideal for Nash, but Jericho kind of like, you know, he tried to use the mat and like propel himself forward with his hands when he hit the mat. Didn't really work. Kind of came off looking really bad. Triple H and Flair invaded the match. They interfered. It wasn't an immediate DQ until Jericho hit Kevin Nash, and they had a 3-on-1 advantage. So they were beating up Nash. HBK comes out. He starts kicking ass. Jericho cuts him off. Nash gets back up. He starts kicking ass too. Flair still has the ripped pants on. That was awesome. Flair came out in the same clothes. His pants is still ripped up. His underwear is still showing. Flair's awesome. Jericho gets jackknifed. Triple H gets jackknifed. And HBK and Nash, they do their little pose thing with their arms up. And yeah, that's how the show ends. Nash has his world title, and JR's like, we could be looking at our next heavyweight champion of the world. And from what I believe, Judgment Day 2003, Nash and Triple H had a pretty horrendous match that lasted like 8 minutes until Nash eventually got DQ'd or something. No, Triple H got DQ'd. But yeah, so a complete lackluster end, in my opinion, to a lackluster Raw. I remember Raw in 2003 was not the greatest thing in the world, so I'm not looking forward to going through all these shit Raws. The main reason I did 03 was because, I mean, I could have started in 02 and I would have had the guarantee of going in 03, but the main reason I wanted to do 03 is I really wanted to go back and watch all the old highlight reels. I love the highlight reels so much, so I just wanted to go back and watch some of that stuff. And, you know, it was at its peak. I mean, it started in 03, and like 03, 04 is when it was at its best. Like mid to late 03, early 04, that's when the highlight reel was like my favorite part of Raw all the time. I always got hyped for a highlight reel, mainly not because Jericho was my favorite wrestler, but it was just always because it was entertaining. So as a kid, the highlight reel was my favorite thing. So that's why I wanted to do the 03 Raws, just so I could relive some of that nostalgic highlight reel greatness. So overall, this Raw was not all that good. Out of 10, I'll probably give it like a 3.5. Like, this Raw was pretty lackluster. Nothing fun on this show. You know, the only good things were the Flair Hurricane match, just because of how stupid it was, and the Trish Victoria match was fine. It had the cool spots in it, but other than that, absolutely nothing on this show worth watching. Kind of boring. There really wasn't a lot of matches. If you're big into match quality, this was not the show for you, or just matches in general, because the majority of it was dedicated to stupid, pointless segments. But other than that, I will see you guys next week for another Raw review. And again, if you guys don't like this, like if you listened to this whole video and thought, man, this sucked, just tell me. I'll delete the video and we never have to talk about it again, and we can do other things. Other than that, I hope to see you guys next week. I hope you guys enjoy the series. I hope this all works out well, and I hope we can kind of get this ball rolling with this new old school Raw review. So I will see you guys next week with another 2003 Raw, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.